If you're new around here, please hit the subscribe button below and don't forget to like the video. It helps the channel to grow. More importantly, please enjoy. Thank you. Hi guys, welcome to Irish Footy Vlogs, and this is your review for 2019 in the First Division. So without further ado, let's get into this. So I'm starting from the bottom and working my way up to the top essentially. And unfortunately for Limerick FC, they finished bottom of the league. The reason why they finished bottom of the league was because they were deducted 26 points because of off the field stuff. I've already got into that. I have a video out regarding Limerick FC, so check that out if you want a little bit more detail on their issues off the field. But on the field, they finished 10th, as I said. They would have finished 7th had they not got the 26 point deduction, which probably in itself is a bit disappointing considering they came from the Premier Division. You know, they would have been nowhere near the top 4 or 5 even with the 26 points. So ultimately that's disappointing for them. Of course, off the field stuff would have played into that. The highlight of the season came probably in July when they beat Longford Town 3-1 at Markets Field. That was a very good victory for them, and they would have enjoyed that one. But unfortunately for them, those results were few and far between this season for Limerick FC. Conor Ellis finished top scorer for them this season with 6 goals in the league. A couple others finishing 4 or 5. So, you know, their stuff, their ability on the field would have been very disappointing this season. Unfortunately, they haven't got a licence for next season, so we're hopeful to see Limerick back in 2021. So that's Limerick FC. The next up we've Wexford FC. I nearly call them Utes, but they finished 9th this season. The only reason why they finished 9th is because Limerick were deducted 26 points. They had a terrible season. 2 wins all season for Wexford. Their highlight, I suppose, being a 2-0 win at home to Bray, which was an excellent result in March. 22 goals scored. 65 against, you know, the worst goal scoring record in the league. This is after 27 matches, you know, there's 27 matches in the First Division and 65 goals against. Shifted some heavy results. 6-0 away to Drogheda, 4-1 at Limerick, and a 5-1 defeat at home to Bray. So things can only get better for Wexford, I suppose, next season. Furlong was their top scorer this season, though. He scored 9 goals for them in 18 games, so that was a pretty good record. They had a discipline issue this season as well, with 58 yellow cards and 6 reds. So although I suppose if you're shifting heavy defeats, one would imagine that comes with the territory in a sense. Like it's a lot of it's probably to do with frustration, things like that. But Wexford are a club that only reached the playoff final a couple of years ago, where they were beaten 3-0 by Drogheda. So you know, they have had a bit of pedigree, but this season was a very disappointing season. 2 wins in 27, and I suppose the less said about Wexford this season, the better. Now, next up we have Athlone Town, who finished 8th in the league this season. Only Wexford had a worse goal difference than Athlone. Wexford minus 43, Athlone had minus 31. They scored 30 goals and conceded 61, so you see where their problems were as well. Now, Athlone, you know, as we all know, they're obviously a town club. They're there, that kind of Westmeath, Roscommon section. There's a college there, so they tend to produce or look to produce young players, and that's something they can do and work with. This season, though, I suppose their highlight was getting to the Leinster Senior Cup final, which they did well to get to, but they were beaten 4-0 by a very youthful St. Patrick's Athletic side. Even so, they'll take something from that. Highlight of the season, result-wise, was probably a 1-0 win at the Carlisle grounds against Bray Wanderers, so that would have been a good win for them. Ultimately, Keelan Dillon was their top scorer this season with 6 goals as well, so they'll be looking for him maybe next season and others to chip in with a few more goals. You know, they've kind of been stuck between that 7th and 10th place for the last number of seasons in the First Division. And, you know, I suppose some people might say they're plodding along, but at the same time, they're keeping the club afloat. So, disappointing season, I suppose, for Athlone, but they can certainly get better next season. And onwards and upwards for the Midlands club, really. 7th place for Galway would have been considered a massive disappointing this season. I think out of all the clubs they had in the first division, they had the most disappointing season, one that they probably underachieved in. They had a lot of young players throughout the season. They did improve as the season goes on in terms of results and performances and that, which bodes well for next season. But very disappointing this season. They have a very good ground, the name in DC Park, excellent looking ground. And they've the experience of the likes of Vinny Fatterty there this season, where he was their top scorer, but he only scored 6 goals, which I suppose is disappointing ultimately for your top scorer. They are where they are, I guess, though. And there is potential with Galway, especially when they get a good crowd in, which was proven in the FAI Cup when they beat Cork City 1-0, only to go out to Shamrock Rovers very narrowly 2-1. Rovers really had to pull all the stops to get a result in Galway and go through to the Cup. Of course, Rovers went on and won the Cup. So, that was a tricky one for them in Galway. They finished 7th, 20 points behind 5th place Bray Wanderers. And you look at that and you say to yourself, that's disappointing, really. Like, they shouldn't be that far adrift, I don't think. Bray didn't even finish in the playoffs. So, onwards and upwards for Galway, very much so. Next season, I'll be doing a preview as well, so I'm not going to go into depth. But next season, I expect them to do an awful lot better than they've done this season. Now, if Galway underachieved, perhaps Cobh Ramblers slightly overachieved by finishing 6th in the league. I would suggest they're a very well-run club because they don't get huge crowds in the games, and but at the same time, they seem to know their limitations, and that's important. They're still in the league, and they're always competing in the league. 6th place, a solid finish, I think, for Cobh Ramblers, in fairness, especially if you consider they finished above Galway. They also lost their star man, Jason Cabia, early on in the season. He moved to Shelbourne. He's a dazzling winger and scored quite a few goals for Cobh early on in the season. Very, very good player. The top scorer of the season was Cian Leonard with 6 goals. Cabia left the club. But the best result of the season was probably a 1-0 win, or definitely a 1-0 win at home to Shelbourne in August, which was proved to be an excellent result. And, they had a couple of bad defeats, to the 7-1 defeat to Galway and that kind of thing. So, which is a surprise considering the positions both teams finished in, to be honest. But, Cobh, I think if they can maintain that next season, they'll be obviously looking to push on, of course. And I know they're putting in a bit of work to do that. But if they can maintain that this season coming, I think that'll be a good position for them. So 6th place for Cobh Ramblers, very solid season. And a lot of good work done at that club. The Bray Wanderers finished 5th in the league, and ultimately it proved to be a disappointing season for the club because they didn't reach the playoffs. They would have been looking to reach the playoffs and expecting to reach the playoffs. But they didn't do so. And, it's a disappointing season for them in the end. They just about missed out, really, although having said that, they were always behind the pack, I guess. The top scorer was Dylan McGlade with 10 goals this season. He's moved on now, but he finished up with 10 goals. They had a couple of good wins. They beat Cabhanteely 3-0 away, and they actually beat Drogheda twice. They beat them 3-1 and they beat them 4-1, although the 4-1 win was on the last day of the season when Drogheda had already secured playoff place. But they had inconsistent results throughout the season, obviously, and losing at home to Athlone, for example, probably wasn't the best result for them, and ultimately paid for that. It's hard to point out what the problem was, really. They were decent enough at the back with Hugh Douglas leading them at the back, and they could score goals going forward. They've a new guy called Dean Williams who scored 7 goals and 9 as well, so it's hard to know exactly what their issue is. Maybe just simply consistency. And simply that the 4 teams ahead of them were just better than them. But they'd be disappointed with that, and I think they'll be looking to push on next season, certainly at least hit a playoff place. But it's hard to know with the 2 of the players I've mentioned there, McGlade and Douglas, have moved on. So it'll be interesting to see how they go next season. But ultimately 5th for Bray Wanderers, a disappointing season for the club. A club not a million miles away from Bray Wanderers, in a few aspects, really, geographically, and the fact that Pat Devlin, we know the history has of Bray, is the manager of Cabhanteely now. Cabhanteely had a very, very, very good season. They got to the playoffs. They beat Longford on penalties after 2 legs, and ultimately were outmatched really by Drogheda in the semi-final, where they drew 1-1 at home, although Drogheda were the better side. Drogheda beat them 5-1 the second leg, which was a disappointing end to a very good season for Cabhanteely. I suppose they would have been disappointed to have lost it in that fashion, I guess. But they can be proud of what they've done this season. Rob Manley was their top scorer with 17 goals and was top scorer in the league. He'll be a huge loss for them going into next season, as he's gone to Longford now. But he was the clear top scorer in the league as well. Kieran Marley-Water scored 7 goals for them as well, and he was a very influential player for them last season. 2 of their best results of the season, really, at home to Shells where they won 1-0, and away to Longford where they won 1-0. Kieran Marley-Water scored winners in both those games, so he was a key man for them throughout the season. Pat Devlin, the good news is there next season, is going to manage the side again, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of squad he can put together and what he can come up with, because it's going to be more difficult maybe next season as well for Cabhanteely, but certainly going to be an interesting one. So overall, disappointing end to the season, but a very, very satisfactory and a very good season for Cabhanteely, and they'll hope to progress as a club. Now, Longford Town had a very interesting season. A club playing at the City Calling Stadium, which is a nice little ground in the Midlands, and they had Neil Fenn at the start of the season, who was managing the club. He left, and Dara Doyle, the assistant, took over in October. But they were flying at the start of the season. They were beating everybody, and they had a big lead. But I don't know, things seemed to spiral a little bit out of control, and results went against them. I don't know if it was the transfer window where they seemed to make a few changes, seemed to unsettle the thing. Neil Fenn then went off to Cork, but the damage seemed to be done already in terms of winning the league by that stage. To go out the way they did would be a killer, because they probably wouldn't have beaten Drogheda anyway over 2 legs maybe, but they went out in penalties to Cabhanteely, where they drew 0-0 and drew 1-1, and as I say, Cabhanteely went through on penalties, and it's obviously sickener to go out that way, especially when you didn't actually lose over the 2 legs. But overall, was it a good season? It certainly wasn't a bad season, because they reached the playoffs. It promised more, perhaps, with that early set of results that really put them, up there with the title favourites, Shelbourne. And one of the things that they had going for them this season is they only conceded 23 goals. Only Shelbourne conceded less than that. Shelbourne conceded 19. So they're obviously very solid at the back. The Dean Byrne, he scored 12 goals from this season, was their top scorer, and Sam Verdon scored 9. So they had a few guys who could get a few goals as well. Good season, but disappointing at the same time, I would say, for Longford. And with Manley coming in next season, a few other signings, I know they've lost Breslin to Bowes. They'll be looking to push on, I guess, next season. And, Doyle will have a pre-season with the club. So that's Longford Town. Now, Drogheda United finished second in the league last season, but they actually only finished a point above Cabhanteely and Longford, so it was close throughout the season. Ultimately, they finished stronger than those sides, I suppose. And they were probably the most exciting team to watch in the league all season, because they scored an awful lot of goals, but also conceded an awful lot of goals as well. They finished the top scorers in the league, so they did. And scoring, I think it was 59 goals. 59 goals, very impressive. One short of 60, obviously, but they conceded 36. So there were, the people at United Park in Drogheda got value for the money last season. A very, very good season under Tim Clancy, and I think one they can look into this season with a lot of confidence. Disappointing to go out. They just about went out to Finn Harps. They beat them 1-0 at home in the playoff final. Finn Harps won 2-0 after extra time in the playoff final. And obviously when you're home, the extra time gives you that bit of advantage that Drogheda wouldn't have had, let's say, at United Park. So they were just about edged out in that final. It was goals galore though. Chris Lyons was brilliant for them this season, scoring 13 goals. We kind of gave it a lot more than that. He ran the channels, he held the ball up, and he's signed on for next season as well. They still have Stephen Meany and Mark Doyle next season as well. Doyle got 12 goals from the wing and Meany got 10. So if they can chalk up close to those numbers, and be more solid at the back, I think Drogheda are in with a great chance of getting promotion next season. The sign, obviously, Hugh Douglas would have been huge. But in terms of this season, they obviously had Luke McNally. He's gone back to Pats. He's actually scored 9 goals the centre half last season. I think 6 in the league. So, they just had goals all over the team, to be fair. A very exciting team to watch. But also an exciting team to watch because they let in a lot of goals as well. So they're going to be an interesting watch next season. But as for this season, again, a very similar to Longford in a way. Very, very good season, but disappointing that they just didn't quite get promotion. Last but not least is the champions, Shelbourne. Now, there was a lot of pressure coming into Shelbourne this season, as there is every season in the first division, because they're such a big club. They've been in the division for the majority time in the last 10 years or so. But Ian Morris, young manager, came in and did a very good job, and ultimately Shelbourne finished comfortably at the top of the table in the end. 19 goals conceded this season. That's mean. And Kilduff was their top scorer with 10 goals. With that back line with Fitzgerald, Prendergast, Byrne and Friel, was steady all season. You Dean Delaney, 39-year-old Dean Delaney in goal as well, and they just had the best balance out of all the teams, I think, as well. As I say, Kilduff did get a number of goals, nice and solid in midfield as well. So they just had that balance, and I'll be honest, it's great to see them back. Fantastic to see them back in the Premier Division, where they'll be tackling some of those juicy derbies again. There's some nice rivalries there as well, which is great. And they deserve to win the league, and there would have been pressure on them, as I said. The best goal difference in the league at plus 31 as well, so they just had the best balance all round, I think, and fully deserved their title win. So that's about it, guys. That wraps up the first division review for 2019. I'll be doing a preview at some stage in late January, maybe early February. Same with the Premier Division. I just want to wait till it gets closer to the start of the season, so I have a better idea what way clubs are in terms of players and that. And I'll give my predictions. I'll do a preview, but kind of a prediction preview. So that's about it for now, guys. Check out the Premier Division review if you haven't done so already. I'll leave it on the end screen here. And just subscribe if you haven't already, and enjoy and comment away. Say anything you want in the comments. That's about it. So Happy New Year if I don't see you before then, because it's likely I won't. So that's me. Good luck.